The Empire Strikes Back, and other worthy sequels. Hi everyone, I'm Jacob, I'm the Cowhat Librarian, and I'm really excited tonight to talk about the newest in the Skyborn series, the second in the series, Call of the Crow by the very talented Jessica Khoury. Now, if you've watched some other videos on my channel, you'll know that I talked about the first in this series, Sparrow Rising, some months back. And while I had a few quibbles with the book, notably that it felt like just the first part of a story instead of a self-contained story in and of itself, I really enjoyed the first one. And so I was extremely excited to pick up its sequel. So, just as a quick recap, although you should definitely watch my video if you'd like a fuller explanation, there is a world where the dominant species are people with wings on their back. No, they're not angels. They all belong to clans that have to do with particular bird species that we might be familiar with in our world. The higher ranking clans are things like the hawks and the eagles, and the more humble clans are those like the sparrows. Ellie, the main character, is a member of the Sparrow clan, and her goal in life was to become a member of the Goldwings, the legendary King's Guard of their kingdom. But those spaces on the Goldwings were generally limited to the higher clans, and no one had ever heard of a Sparrow making it before. And the adventures she stumbled onto as a result of her attempt to join the Goldwings got her swept up into all sorts of other stuff, and it made for a really great book. As the first book ended, her newly sort of friend, Nox, a member of the Broken Crow clan, and a few other friends are on the run. While Ellie technically fulfilled the requirements to become a member of the Goldwings, the mess they'd gotten caught up with involving a sky stone that could cure wing rot, a disease that affects the wings of their people, attracted the attention of the king, and he was trying to hunt them down, and they had to make a run for it. And that's where the first book ended. The second book picks up a little while later. They're still on the run, but they've made their way to a sort of safe haven for now, with a group of different people who live together off the beaten path away from the kingdom, and they have an elder who receives various visions of the future. And she has one about Ellie that's fairly confusing, and when Ellie complains, the elder sort of brushes her off. It's a vision of the future. They're meant to be vague. They're not written down in point form notes for your convenience. Anyway, the friends are taking a much needed rest there while deciding what to do next with the Sky Stone and with everything that had happened, when they're set upon by the Hunter, someone sent by the king to attack and kill them, and they have to go on the run again. And in the process, they head somewhere that Nox has been trying to go for a long time, to the prison where his mother was held. He planned to get to the prison with the Sky Stone to heal her wing rot and to keep the promise he made when he left. So they stow away on a boat, head to the prison, and it's heavily guarded. There's no way in. And so they think of the most ridiculous idea possible. A storm is coming. They fly deliberately into the clouds and attract gargoyles to come attack the prison and keep the guards occupied long enough so they can make it to Nox's mom. Now, as it turns out, they didn't make it in time. She gets to say a few words to Nox, encourages him to find his family in the southern lands far from the kingdom, and then she dies. And Nox is distraught, obviously, but because the guards have recovered and things are coming to a head, they all have to head out, pile on another ship, stow away, and head for the Southlands and hope for the best. Well, they end up in the Southlands, and they find one of Nox's relatives, his grandfather, in fact. And they get to meet him and meet the community he belongs to and the various things they do there. But they find that wing rot has made it there too. And that this settlement's way of dealing with it is by amputating and burning the wings because that's the only way they can keep the infection from spreading. And Twig, one of their friends who's fairly good speaking to animals, contracts wing rot. It was compelling. I complained about the way the first book ended, but I have no complaints about how the second one picked up. I was very impressed that Khoury didn't fall into sequelitis. I made up this term, well, pardon me, I did not make up the word, I made up my definition for the term a couple years ago to refer to the burnout that people suffer from when they read many books in a series in rapid succession, because authors tend to regurgitate many of the same descriptions of the characters and places and summarizations of the story over and over and over again, and it gets rather tiresome. I don't need every sentence in the first chapter to read Ellie, the Sparrow clan member who wanted to join the Goldwings but was cast aside by the king after her involvement in blah blah blah. I didn't need that. And Khoury did an amazing job getting people up to speed for the start of the second book without falling prey to sequelization. It was great. I have no doubt that someone who read the first book and continued right on to this one won't be burnt out by the introduction of this book. Further, I think she did it in a really, really great way to ease in new readers. I think they'll be able to pick things up right away, which I've got to be honest, I was not expecting given the abrupt way the first book ended. So well done. The stakes are higher this time. It's not just Ellie's quest, there's survival. There's survival as a species, Nox's survival as a member of the Crow clan. There's all these things tied up together, and the implications for bigger things, which I'll talk about in a minute, were just compelling. I loved the writing of this, and I can't recommend it enough. If you read the first book in this series, definitely continue on to the second. If the readers in your lives like something like Saving Fable, perhaps, I think they'd get a lot out of the Skyborn series. Now, before I carry on, I have to warn you, there are major, major spoilers ahead, and I have to talk about the deal breaker. Okay, the deal breaker for this one is sort of an interesting one. Jim Cornette, famous wrestling manager, promoter, organizer, booker, commented once that the role of the faces, or the good guys in wrestling, when they're talking, is to say what the audience should be thinking. They should go out into the ring and say, so-and-so, you are a bad guy for doing this, and someone needs to hold you accountable. They need to put the viewer's thoughts into word form. And that's their main role when they're talking. And it felt a little bit like Ellie, as a protagonist, took that role just a little too far once or twice. There were one or two times where maybe things could have been slightly subtler and not quite so Ellie telling the reader how to feel as it came out. She's a very forceful personality. She's an underdog. She's a scrapper. She's had to fight for every accomplishment in her life when everyone would hold her down just because she's a member of the Sparrow clan. But it felt like it could have been dialed down one notch and maybe left a few things for the reader to discover for themselves. Still, it is a minor, minor complaint. Now, as things go on with this book, there was some incredible stuff in this one, I gotta tell you. Once Twig had developed wing rot, their Skystone had broken previously. And from the first book, they knew that Skystones had to do with the eyes of gargoyles. And their brief trip up to the island in the clouds, when they were trying to break into the prison, they found stuff that indicated there were Skystones up there. So they deliberately wait for a storm, fly into the clouds, and find a gigantic floating island with lots of Skystones. And they realized that this place is the fabled land Tyrolus that they'd heard of in legend from the previous settlements they'd stayed at. And Ellie hypothesizes that their people were originally from Tyrolus, and it was something in the sky stone that permeated the floating island that kept them healthy, and it's been whatever caused them to come to the ground that's been giving them wing rot. They don't have whatever essential mineral or vitamin that the sky stone provides and previously provided while they lived on Tyrolus. It's a little tiny bit of a logical jump for Ellie, but it was compelling. The idea that they'd been from there and the Gargoyles had taken it over. There's some amazing stuff where Knox's grandfather has some things labeled with the family crest, but it's the same symbol that was used on ash marks over doors and windows to prevent the Gargoyles from attacking houses. All of these things come together when they start theorizing that there were Phoenix clan members who ruled Tyrolus. And when you combine that with the knowledge from the first book that Knox and his family were feared because fire did not bother them, it was so well written and it clicked hard when I read it that Knox was a member of the Phoenix clan. And that's why the king was after them, because he couldn't rule the land if the rightful heirs, the Phoenixes, were around. It was amazing. And the only thing that kept it from being even better is, like I said before, Ellie going maybe just a little over the line in spelling it out for the readers. I mean, it is a juvenile fiction book. To some extent, that's to be expected. But it would have been nice if Khoury had perhaps given her readers a little more benefit of the doubt and let them come to the conclusion on their own. As the book ends, it seems like Knox is dead, and they send him out on a funeral pyre, and his wings burst into gold. And that's sort of how the book ends. It was compelling, it was dramatic, it left all sorts of interesting questions about his lineage and whether they can reclaim Tyrolus as a place for their people. The whole Ashmark thing, keeping the Gargoyles out, and that whole agreement being thrown away after their invasion of the island and stealing of the Sky Stones. It makes me wonder, did the Phoenix clan have an agreement with the Gargoyles? Is that why the Ashmark that represented that family kept everyone safe from the Gargoyles invading their houses? Or were the Gargoyles just so afraid of the Phoenix clan that anything marked with that symbol was a sign of danger to them until they had to overcome it because of that new invasion of their land? It's really neat stuff. I think there are a lot of readers who will get a lot out of it, and I can't wait for the final book in the trilogy. So, if you've got young readers in your life who might like a daring adventure of bird-like humans, give this a try. Go borrow it from your local library. And while I'm on the topic, if you are a teacher or a parent and you use and appreciate the services your local public library offers, please take just a minute and let the powers that be know. Tell your city council, tell your municipal council, tell your MLA that you appreciate the services public libraries offer. We're at a time where a lot of libraries are having trouble finding sustainable funding, and even a few words in the right ears can make a world of difference. Now, as for the library staff members watching this video, don't forget, watching my videos counts as professional development time. With that, thank you for listening to me ramble about this book and how excited I am for the third in the series. By all means, please like, please subscribe, and please check back to see what else I have to talk about it from the Cowhat Library. Oh, and if you haven't yet, go watch my video on the first in the series too. Thank you. Bye now.